Hello everybody. Just to start off this channel, I'm wanting to do reviews on different products and whatnot, just things that interest me and that I think might interest some people out there. And first thing I think I'm going to do is the Motomod from Motorola. This is the Gamepad Motomod. And for some reason, I've noticed that a lot of the websites, like Android Authority and whatnot, have yet to do a review on this, which strikes me as kind of odd considering it's been out for several weeks. But I think it's doing a real disservice because there's a lot of things about this that need to be known. And just for the record, I'm going to be combining this using my Moto Z Play Droid Edition here. Not the highest end Droid Z line phone, but at the same time, more than sufficient to run most games. Now, first of all, I do have the sound down on this, but just to give you an idea of how it works, all you'll do is simply, just like all the rest of the Motomods, you take it, and it just magnetically attaches, and immediately it recognizes it. So, let's just open it up. And one of the first things that's interesting about this is that it does actually enable you to control the menu system with it, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, it's only really good in the menu system itself. Once you get into something like YouTube or whatnot, it no longer works. So it's only good in the actual menu system. But it's very simple in that regard, plug and play, which is really nice. One of the, unfortunately, only really good things I can say about this Motomod. A lot of people have said they think that the Motomods are kind of gimmicky, that they don't really provide much for the buck, that they're kind of expensive when you take into account what they do. And I actually do agree with that, but I thought, this might be the one mod that would be might buck that trend. I certainly had hoped so, given its MSRP of $79.99. Now, thankfully, I did not have to pay that much for it. I did buy this. This was not given to me in any way, shape, or form. It's only for sale from Verizon. Right now, they still have it on sale for $49.99, which is what I paid for it, and I can definitely say that that is way too much for this. But to give a little bit of a explanation of the build and whatnot, the back of this has a really interesting feeling material on the grips here. It feels a lot like if you've ever used the Moto G4 or G4 Plus, it feels a lot like the back on that. And then there's a slightly different texture right here. And you can see this little thing right here, this little design, this actually lights up when you put it on. And of course, this is a hole for the camera, which has to be on there per the Motomod standards. On the buttons, you have two analog sticks here. They do click in. You have a D-pad, a home button. Your four buttons here, they're in the standard Xbox configuration, X, Y, A, B. And then down here you have these little teeny tiny select and start buttons, select and that's start. And on the top here, you'll notice that you have your triggers, more like bumpers. Believe it or not, this is actually two buttons right here. You have an L1 and an L2, and then right here you have an R1 and an R2. Together, they are about the size of one bumper on an Xbox 360 controller. So imagine that and split it in two. Not all that great. The majority of it is a plastic build, but I will say that it does feel solid from the build quality of the actual device. Sans, of course, these metal pins right here, which are used for the magnet connector for the Motomod. That is really the only good thing that I can say about the build quality of this device, other than that the sticks are serviceable. They do feel okay. They're certainly better than like a nub like on the PSP or the Nintendo 3DS family, but they certainly are nowhere near as nice as something on, say, like the Nintendo Switch. Those definitely are superior. The D-pad is actually one of the major concerns. It's been on a lot of websites, and I have to agree. It's not really that good. It's really hard. It has very sharp edges. You can hear that it's very clicky, but that's only half the story. While it's clicky, it's not clicky in a good way. For instance, one of the games that I do have that actually works really well with it from a configuration standpoint is DuckTales Remastered. And it's very common that it just won't register it. If you press it a little bit like that, you're not going to get anything. You have to really press it hard, or it will not recognize it. The home button, it works well, just takes you back to the menu. The start and select, I don't even know why they're on there. They're completely useless. They're so tiny that they're almost completely unusable. And then you have these buttons here. The big problem I have with these buttons here is they feel like they get stuck when you press them down. I guess you would call it the return is not very good. It's very slow. And they're actually kind of hard, and I think they hurt my fingers a little. And then finally, like I was talking about, the triggers on top, or I should say just buttons. I don't know what you would call them. They're complete garbage. I tried playing a couple of racing games that require you to use them. It was the most cramped and uncomfortable feeling I've had in quite some time. It's very obvious that Motorola created this on their own without really involving a third party that actually manufactures controllers. There's a reason why Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony put so much effort into their controller design, because quite frankly, it's not easy. It's something you can easily screw up, and you really need somebody who has some expertise in this area, and they didn't do that. It's actually kind of odd because there were 2 Indiegogo campaigns for separate controllers that actually were made by people who had a lot more experience with it. Design certainly looked a lot better, and of course neither of them got funded, and then all of a sudden Motorola just throws this out like, oh hey, yeah, great idea. I don't know. I mean, they were not worried about the button quality, but as you'll see, there are these little lights up here, and yes, those actually light up when you hit any button on one of the sides. So like if I hit any of these buttons over here, this will light up right here, and vice versa here. So stupid. They were worried about that, but they could not get this thing to work. The other problem I'm having with this is compatibility. I have used a very inexpensive MFi controller on an iPhone SE. And one of the things that I really like about that standard is that every Apple device uses that exact same standard. So if your device or your phone and your app support controllers, which it would as long as it's iOS 7 or higher, then it's going to work. There's no competing standard. As for this, that's not true. And allow me to show you partially what I mean here. Some games actually do work pretty well. One that works really well is Sonic 1. This is the Christian Whitehead version. It works perfectly, which, I would expect from Christian Whitehead because he actually knows what he's doing. And he seems like he actually cares. Another one here, and I'm sorry this got a lot of focus, but is DuckTales Remastered. It also runs pretty well. But then there are some that do not. Sonic 4 Episode 1 is probably the weirdest one of all, because you use the analog stick here on the left to move Sonic, but what you actually do after the fact to make him jump is press this stick in. As you can see, it lit up when I did that, and it's going to bring the app up. And we're going to get out of this because there's really nothing for me to show there. But alas, it's just very strange. Another one is Double Dragon Trilogy. The controller is usable for that. Certainly it's usable with the D-pad, but it has a really odd bug that the stick, if you try to use the analog stick over here to control it and move it around, you will notice that it doesn't allow you to move down with the stick. You can do it with the D-pad, but not with the stick. I don't know why that's like that. Very odd bug. I know that game's controller interface was done for the Moga, and that may have something to do with it, but regardless, it's pretty pathetic. And let's see, we got a couple other games in here I could talk about that I've tried. I haven't tried any of those yet. Another one here was Crazy Taxi. Crazy Taxi it runs pretty well, but it's almost unplayable because it expects you to use this button right here for your gas pedal. I mean, you can imagine how well that works with something that's about as thick as a pencil. It just flat out doesn't work. So while I hate to do this, I have to just say straight up, I'm not going to bother with giving scores to things because, quite frankly, I think it's pointless. The better way to put it is buy or not, and this is an absolute don't buy, and it really doesn't matter who you are or what you're going to use it for. There are so many other options that will work better than this at its price, even if it's a discounted price of $50. It's just not worth it. I certainly hope that what Motorola gets from this, if nothing else, if they make a 2.0 product, that they put a lot more effort into it. Hire somebody, hire some people from Mad Catz. Mad Catz just went out of business. Hire some of the people from there. I mean, there's people there that know how to actually make controllers. Don't try to do this on your own, because when you do that, you end up with garbage like this. And that's exactly what this is. It's a piece of garbage. It's not worth it. And actually, I am getting ready to take this back because there is no way I'm going to keep it as bad as it is. But I hope that's helpful to everyone, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll answer anything I can. This is my first real video, so unfortunately it's not that well made, but as I get better at it, hopefully we'll see some improvement there. But again, thank you, and have a good day.